Welcome to Spooky Ass Shit. I am your host, Eric Dwinells, and with me tonight, not only are you the first guest of this new year, 2020, you're the first guest I've had on this show since October.
Really?
Yeah.
You've been doing solo shows this whole time?
Yeah. So this is Fatima Elmi, by the way.
Oh, hi.
Returning once again.
Yes.
It's been a long time since you've been on the program.
It has. Yep.
So, Fatima, tonight, we are going to be talking about the convention-going experience.
Yes.
And we are two people that are able to talk about this because I've been going for years. I believe the first convention that I went to, it was not specifically a horror convention. I don't even know what it was, to be honest with you, because it wasn't my decision to go. But I believe the first one I ever went to was in 2003.
Okay.
So I've been going pretty much every year since then.
Yeah.
And since you've known me, you have attended several.
I have. Yep. My first one was in 2016.
Yeah. Which we talked about a little bit, I think, on the show. I think, was that the Tim Curry one? Was that the first
It was.
one?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we talked about that on the show.
Mm-hmm.
A long time ago, back in season 1.
Wow.
I think it was right around... Actually, it was the same one that had the Telltale Heart. That's why I remember so well, because I just borrowed that clip of me reading that story for the Christmas episode that I just put out.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it was episode 38. I'm not positive, but I think it was episode 38.
Wow.
And this is episode, I don't know, 60, might be 69.
Well, now.
The sexiest of all numbers, but it might only be 68. I'm not sure. All right, so I just thought with our combined experiences, me as an old pro veteran and you as a relative newcomer, although maybe not quite such a newcomer now.
Right.
But you were someone who was new to this not too long ago. Mm-hmm. We could kind of tackle it and tell people what to expect if they do go to a convention and kind of give our tips and tricks and also ask for some feedback and see what folks out there, because I know through the Instagram, Spooky Ass Shit on Instagram, by the way, I know that a lot of our listeners do go to these types of conventions. So I think it'll be fun to explore our different stories that we have.
Sure.
From attending these kind of things. But before we dive into it, of course, I want to remind everyone to check out the website, Spooky Ass Shit or spookyas.com. They both end in .com. I forgot to say it on the first one, but you know what I mean. They both take you to the same place. That's the show's blog page. From there, you can download and listen to each and every episode, including the ones no longer available on your favorite streaming service. You can also find links to all of our social media. We are at Spooky Ass Shit on Instagram, and you can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/spookyas. And from there, don't forget, you can join our secret closed group. That is for the true blue spookaroos of you out there. And that is called the Spookaroos, coincidentally enough. And that way you can comment on ghost stories and Bigfoot stories and murder stories without the weight of public judgment. It's not a group full of weirdos.
No.
Not in a bad way.
Not at all.
Weirdos in a good way.
Sure.
But I don't want people to get the idea that, like, if they get in there, they're talking to, like, some straight-up crazy people who, like, worship Charles Manson or something like that. It's not like that.
No. No, it's not.
No, it's mostly just memes and stuff. If you need more horror-related memes in your life, the Spookaroos are for you. All right, Fatima, with all that out of the way, I asked you to come up with some ideas of things if we were to put it, say, in a top 10 list.
Sure.
Maybe not even a top 10 list, but a 10 list of pieces of advice about conventions.
Right.
Now, like I said, I've been going, it's been almost 20 years now.
Wow.
Since I started going. The first one that I remember going to, and if I remember the order correctly, I did not, it was more like a sci-fi convention. I don't know what it was called. I don't know where it was. I imagine it was in Boston. But I could be even wrong about that. But my brother was going with a friend of his, and some people from Star Trek were going to be there. Mm-hmm. I was never a Trekkie or a Trekker or anything like that, really. So I didn't have too much interest in that. But I was a Star Wars fan growing up, and Billy D. Williams was there.
Oh, nice.
So I said, oh, yeah, I'll go to meet Billy D. Williams. Hell yeah. So I did. And that is the first one that I remember going to. So actually, That's probably before 2003.
Really?
That's probably more like 2001, 2002. I don't remember exactly when that was. But the first one that I chose to go to,
right.
I mean, I guess I chose to go to that one. But the first one that I like really wanted to go to was Chiller Theater.
Yeah.
In New Jersey.
Yeah.
In the spring of 2003. And the reason
Any
why,
particular reason?
Yeah, the reason why, which I've told on this show before, so I won't tell the whole story.
Okay.
Was to meet Roddy Piper.
Mm.
Because I was a huge wrestling fan as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
You can attest that although I don't really watch wrestling now, I still watch clips and shows about like old wrestling from like 20, 30 years ago.
That's true. Yeah.
So Roddy Piper was like a big deal to me.
Mm-hmm.
And he knocked me out. It's a whole story. He legit knocked me out, put me on my ass. It's a whole story. I've told it on the show before. I forget what episode, but it's in there. Go back and listen to the archives. You'll find it in there. So I won't waste time telling that whole story now. But that's probably my number one convention story.
I would say so, yes.
The time Roddy Piper legit knocked me out.
You out.
Yeah, with a sleeper hold.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was a little miscommunication as to whether we were posing for a picture or putting on actual wrestling holds.
Oh,
and,
my goodness.
And that's what happened. I ended up on my ass in public with short-term memory loss. But yeah, again, I told that whole story on another episode, so we'll skip over it. But if you really want to hear it and you can't find it, hit me up on Instagram or Facebook, and I'll share it there too. Maybe I'll repost the picture too.
It is.
I got a good picture of him right before. You can see I'm turning red. Maybe a little concern in my eyes.
Right.
But that picture came out, and that was just before digital was really a thing. I mean, it was around, but we definitely had to bring those pictures to CVS and get them developed, and hold my breath.
I'm sure.
Being like, oh, please don't let this be a terrible picture.
Yeah, yeah.
So that was the first one. That Chiller Theater was specifically more horror oriented. Now I'd say that's not really true so much. They still do the Chiller Theater conventions. It's a huge convention.
Huge.
In New Jersey.
Yep.
But it's not so much horror driven,
right,
like it used to be.
Which is what I thought it was going to be because of the title.
Right.
But it wasn't like that. They had old TV stars and.
Yeah, it's kind of just a real big mix.
Yeah.
So that's something, I guess that's unofficial number one, is just keep in mind when you're looking at conventions, even if it seems like it's geared to one genre or another, they want people from all over to come in because they want to appeal to a big audience. So just take a look if this seems like something you might be interested in, and there's one in your area, and say it's like a sci-fi convention, just go ahead and take a look at the guest list and see who's going to be there, because you never know. There might be some people that maybe they did sci-fi, but they also did something else that you're really into that you like better. So if you're interested, scope it out. So the first thing on my list that I want to talk about is the early admission tickets and buying tickets in advance.
Sure.
Generally speaking, for most conventions, if you buy tickets online before like the week of the show, you'll save a few dollars on it, maybe up to $5 or so. So that's a good way to go. So there's advice piece number one.
Yep.
It also spares you from having to wait in line when you get there, especially if you go on opening day of the convention,
right, or
on the Saturday, which is the busiest day. If you don't get your tickets ahead of time, and this might run a little bit counter to advice that I'm going to give later on, but if you don't buy your tickets ahead of time, you probably want to go later in the day, because if you go like right away, the line's going to be maybe around the block.
Yeah.
To get in.
I feel like the first time we went to Chiller, we waited in a really long line.
Yeah, sometimes
outside.
You do. Well, that's why when we've been going to Chiller, we haven't been smart enough to get the advance tickets.
Right.
But also when we do go, we go right up to the window and just say, give us the tickets that let us in early.
Yeah.
Because I don't like waiting outside in lines.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you have to wait outside.
We did that the first year.
And it's one thing in the spring, but it's another thing in the fall when a lot of these conventions happen.
Right.
I remember it being very cold.
It was cold
when we were waiting outside.
Yeah.
I think that was the Tim Curry one, right?
It was.
Yeah.
So it was the fall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we must not have paid to get into the doors early.
I guess not.
But we basically have been doing that lately. We just go up. It's like $10 more. And honestly, you don't really get much.
Right.
You don't because most of the celebrity tables and stuff like that aren't really open yet.
Right.
But you can go through the vendor rooms and you get inside the building, which is nice.
Right.
And then you can decide if you want to be one of the first people in line, if you want to wait at a celebrity table or not, and decide whether you want to be one of the early people to that line, which is another piece of advice we'll talk about in a little bit.
Sure.
But overall, what are your feelings on the advanced getting in? Not the advanced tickets. That's a good idea. If you know you're going to go, buy the advanced tickets. Whether you buy the regular get-in, at say the convention opens at noon, you buy those tickets, you'll save a few bucks. Or you buy the pre-show admission tickets, which maybe you'll get in at 11 or something like that.
Right.
So you get in a little bit earlier. Do you feel like it's made much of a difference, or what are your thoughts?
No, I think it's a good idea to pay a little extra to get in early, and you can walk around. There's lots of stuff to look at.
That's true.
And see.
Although I will say, if you've gone like a couple years to the same convention, or even conventions in the same area, it tends to be the same dealers.
That's
at the
true.
vendor tables.
Yeah. Okay.
So like, look around, take it in, enjoy it, but like, probably once you've seen them one year, they tend not to mix it up too much.
That is true.
Same kind of things.
Yeah.
Except it always happens like if they had an item that I wanted the year before and I didn't get it for whatever reason, and then I'll be like, well, let me see if I can find it this year. They can't. There was a poster for the movie Squirm, which is not a good movie.
Okay.
Some of you guys might be familiar with it from its airing on
Never heard of it.
MST3K, but it's not a good movie, but it has an awesome poster with like a skull and worms and like all this stuff. It's really artistic, really cool looking. And they had one that would like fit perfectly on a door. And I didn't buy it one year, and I went back the next year. The guy didn't have it anymore.
Of course.
And there was a patch that we saw one year when we went, and I forget what it even said, but it was like a fire-eating patch with like a skeleton eating fire. I forget. It had some quippy line at the bottom, and I'm a fire eater.
Yeah.
So I was like,
that.
that'd be perfect for me. But for whatever reason, I didn't buy it. I think it was like one of those things where like, maybe I'll come back at the end of the night if I still have money, and we just didn't go back.
Yeah.
And I've never seen that vendor since.
That's how it goes.
All right, so that's piece of advice number one. We both recommend getting the pre-show admission just to save yourself from waiting in the line. If you don't get the pre-show admission, I personally recommend going later in the day so that you're not caught up in the opening business line. It depends, though, because if you go on, like, say, a Friday night, like Chiller is open on Friday night, they're only open from, like, 6 to 9.
Right.
So you're probably going to be waiting in line no matter what.
Yeah.
So I go to Chiller, but usually the three that I go to every year, Chiller does a convention in the spring and in the fall.
Right.
And usually go to at least one, sometimes both of those.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's Rock and Shock.
Yes.
In Worcester, Massachusetts, which they do in October, usually kind of early to mid-October.
Mm-hmm.
And then there is Super Mega Fest.
Yes.
Which has bounced around a little bit, but it's back home in Framingham, Massachusetts. And they have moved the time around here and there. But this year they did it in November again, which I prefer, because otherwise it gets too busy. Then there's 3 conventions in October to go to, and I have to pick and choose, and I don't like that because I can't afford to go to 3 in a month.
Right. Absolutely not. Yeah. So Rock and Shock and Super Mega Fest I experienced for the first time this year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, so another thing, this is an unofficial piece of information, but there's definitely differences in the conventions.
Yes.
So Chiller is an old, established, really big convention in New Jersey.
It's huge, yeah.
And there's good things and bad things that go along with it. I have found that over the years, the experience of going to Chiller has become less pleasurable.
Really?
But they do get the best celebrities.
Yeah. And why do you feel like it's less pleasurable?
It's too crowded.
Too many people.
I don't like the way that they handle the lines. Sometimes the staff there don't really seem to know what they're doing. Some of them are great. Some of them...
Yeah, we've experienced some of that.
I remember the Tim Curry one. I don't even remember exactly what it was.
God, yeah.
But they kept telling us, no, you need to wait in this line. No, wait, go in this line. And like we'd be in each line for an hour, and then they'd tell us, no, you're in the wrong line. You need to go to this one.
You were
really
so
bad.
mad.
I was.
Yeah.
And I don't get mad.
And you don't get mad, but you were mad.
Yeah.
It's the first time I ever saw you mad.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I was gonna say I feel like Chiller is really big, lots of people, but they do have really great talent. And then Rock and Shock I felt was like a smaller scale. And Super Mega Fest was like in the middle. So I really enjoyed my time at Super Mega Fest.
I think that's the best mix of both worlds.
Mm-hmm.
The thing about Rock and Shock, I like it because you can get in and out real quick.
Yes.
For the most part.
Right.
Even on an opening night.
Yeah.
It's
There was
really
no waiting.
enjoyable.
Yeah.
Also, I think it's the most on point as far as theming goes.
Mm-hmm.
Like all the celebrities are there, like they're horror celebrities.
Yeah. Right.
Which, so if you're like a purist, I think Rock and Shock is a great convention for you to try out. These are just the ones close to us, of course,
Right,
but I'm sure
right.
there are comparable conventions out near other people. So
Yeah,
I'm sure
absolutely.
like this system, and it seems like more and more are popping up all over the place.
Yeah.
So I've also been to like Boston Comic-Con, and there's a few other little Boston ones. I've been a guest at Boston Comic-Con.
You have?
I have.
How?
Back when I had my theater company.
Oh, okay.
We were doing a production of Superman, the musical. And I went to the local comic book store and I said, hey, do you mind if I put this poster up? And he said, no, not at all. And then he was like, hey, do you want a booth at Comic-Con? And this was back in 2007 or 8, something like that. 2007, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So conventions were like not as big a deal at that point.
Right.
Because this was like in the basement of some Boston hotel.
Wow.
And I didn't realize, but the comic store that I went into, that's the dude who like owns Boston Comic Con. I think it's called Fan Expo just this year. They just changed the name.
Oh, they did?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
But he owned it, so that's why he was able to just offer me a table. He didn't like charge me or anything.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't give me a great spot either. I was like in a hallway. But still, me and Brother Dan went and advertised Superman the musical, and
Nice.
yeah, so
Cool.
I've been a guest at one Comic-Con.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so just, be aware that there are different size conventions, and the bigger ones tend to get bigger celebrities because they get more money, so they can afford to bring in, big names.
Right.
But you're also going to be waiting in bigger lines and
Yep.
dealing with more of a hassle and a lot more people.
Yeah.
All right. Item number 2 on our top 10 list of advice for going to conventions.
Mm-hmm.
This is one that you brought up.
Okay.
This is dress comfortably.
Yes. I
So-
think, you have to make sure that, me personally, I get hot easily, so I wouldn't bring in a heavy coat because you'll end up carrying it with you. And you're walking around a lot, so I would wear comfortable shoes. I mean, those are really that's my only advice.
Yeah, now there's also people who dress up like cosplay,
Oh, yes.
which
Yes.
you and I are not known for, though I have done it on one occasion.
Yeah. I feel like you've definitely done it more than I have.
Only done it once.
Only on one
Yeah.
occasion?
Yeah.
When?
Well, I went to Super Mega Fest,
Okay.
and it was in November
Yeah.
this year. Not this past year, but the year that I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And Halloween had just passed, and it was the Halloween that I dressed up as Macho Man Randy Savage.
Oh, okay.
And I went in to this convention as a civilian, not dressed up.
Mm-hmm.
And, went through everything, and it was fine. And then I was there, and I saw Sergeant Slaughter, and there was a couple other, like, wrestlers there.
Mm-hmm.
And people, like, a lot of people were dressed up. So I was like, hey, I still have most of my Macho Man stuff in the car from Halloween. Let me just throw it on and go back in there. And I did. And, it was kind of a half-assed costume. Like, I didn't have the full setup.
Right.
But I had the big shiny robe.
Mm-hmm.
And I had the, hair, and I think I had my own beard, or I don't know if I had a fake beard at that time. I don't know. But anyway, so I went back in, and I was a big hit.
I'm sure you were.
Yeah.
That's, when you dress up as Randy Savage, you...
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, you do it up.
Macho
and you
madness.
the persona.
Well, you got to.
I know.
You got to.
You do it. You do it well.
So we don't have too much advice for cosplayers because we
Right.
don't really cosplay. But I think
No.
a lot of the same things apply. Just realize you're going to be walking around it all day.
Right.
Some conventions have like little break areas for cosplayers and like little like fix-it tents.
Yeah.
Where you can go and
which is really great.
Like, oh, if your wing falls off or something, you can go and fix that.
Yeah, and just be aware too, which I'm sure you are. People are gonna want to stop you and take pictures with you, especially if you're, you know.
I would imagine that's kind of the point of
reason.
Dressing up.
Yeah.
You can't like dress up in some awesome outfit and then be like, no, get away from me. I know. Why are you looking at me? Why do you want a picture?
I can't take pictures now. Yeah.
You don't dress up like that because you're shy. Actually, I bet in a way you do dress up like that because you're shy, because it's the time where you can not be shy because you're not, I'm not Eric D. I'm Macho Man Randy Savage.
You said Eric D. Yeah. Right. That makes sense. I wish I could do that. I don't think I have the balls to do it. But
to dress up?
Yeah.
All right. Now, the next, number 3 on my list here is plan your wait times. This is what I was alluding to a little bit earlier.
Oh, okay.
What I said, when you get in there, you can decide whether you want to be first in line to meet somebody or whether you want to go and explore, do your prowling first.
Right.
I would say for most people, it does not pay to be like first, like to wait in line a really long time to see a celebrity. Say you go to a convention on a Friday night, first night, and you want to meet somebody, and you're just so excited you got to be in line, and you got to meet this person.
Right.
For the most part, you'd be better off waiting either maybe till it's a quieter time of the night, like later in the night, or maybe sometime like next day, like later in the next day or something like that. Because the line's going to be really long.
Right. And
you're going to wait a long time. And you could be basically in line the entire night, especially if it's something like Chiller where it's only open for a couple hours.
Right.
You could wait in line for a couple hours to meet somebody, and then you have like a half hour to look through the rest of the convention.
Yeah.
However.
So you have to plan.
Yeah. But if you're someone like me, who I'm an anxiety person.
Yeah.
I like to know that if something happens, if the celebrity decides they don't feel good and they're going to go to bed early or something like that, I like to know, like, I'm going to be there. I'm going to get this done. This is what I came for.
Okay.
So that's why, like, with Tim Curry, we got right in line, even though it ended up taking us forever.
But and there were a lot of people there to see him. His line was really long.
Yeah.
So that was the first thing that we did.
But I remember being concerned that night because that was a convention. Bobby the Brain Heenan was there.
Oh, right.
And there was a couple other people, and I was like, and we were only there for one night.
Right.
So I was like, if I don't get out of this line to meet these people, I'm going to be pissed. But on the other hand, if I got out of line and didn't get to meet Tim Curry,
I know,
especially with his health being somewhat fragile, I was like, man.
Yeah.
So that I remember that night in particular being very difficult. So you have to make decisions like that. But for the most part, I would say go to the other celebrities first, the ones that aren't going to have such a big line.
Sure.
Go look through the vendor room or whatever, because you're going to be waiting in line. So if you're not an anxiety person like me, go ahead and do that. But if you're an anxiety person, I know you just got to get it done. There's no stopping you. And I was right. I got through the line.
Yeah.
Took my picture with Tim Curry.
Yep.
He only, he said a few words. It's lovely.
You said some words to him.
I told him that I loved him.
Yes.
And it's true.
Yeah, I know.
Because he is a very charismatic and compelling performer.
That's right.
You want to talk about Rocky Horror? You want to talk about Clue? You want to talk about Wild Thornberries? He gives it his all every time.
That's right.
All right. Muppet Treasure Island. All right, number 4 on my list is one that is really unfortunate, and that is be prepared to pay.
Yep.
It did not used to be this way. Back in my day. For example, back in 2003.
Yeah.
I remember Adam West, Batman, from the mid-'60s television show, was at Super Mega Fest. And he was charging $25 for a black and white 8x10 signed, or $30 for a color photo signed.
Amazing.
And I remember thinking, it was an outrageous price.
Yeah.
And being like, oh, how could, this, I mean, I know he's a big star and everything for people like us, people that go to conventions, but I was like, oh, this is highway robbery.
Well.
Little did I know.
Well, now, what are the going prices nowadays?
If you're someone who was like in a Star Wars movie for half a second in like one of the original series, that's $30 right there. And if you want a signed picture, and probably another $5 to $10 to $20 if you want to take a picture with that person, with them, with your own camera.
Yeah.
Not a professional photo op, which is probably more like $40 to $60.
Yep. It's no joke.
That's for the low tier celebrities.
Yeah.
Didn't used to be like that. Kira Shawn from Night of the Living Dead, she played the little girl in Night of the Living Dead. The one who ends up killing her mom. Oh, sorry, spoiler. Fatima just gave a look.
What if there are people who haven't seen it?
Who haven't seen Night of the Living Dead from 1960 whatever? It's true. It's possible that you're out there, but
okay,
anyway,
it's me.
She plays the little girl.
Okay.
If you brought your own thing for her to sign, free.
Okay.
Free. That would never happen these days. Maybe she still does that. I don't know.
No, I'm sure she doesn't.
But that's just an example. And like other people, like the lower tier celebrities, would be like $10 for an autograph. And pictures with them were always free.
Yeah.
They never charged, even if they were a big celebrity. If you had your own camera, if they were willing to take pictures at all. Some of them weren't willing to take pictures.
Yeah.
But if they were, it was always free. There was no upcharge for pictures.
Listen, times have changed.
I know.
People got to make their money.
No. Anytime we meet a celebrity and they don't charge extra for taking a picture with them after you've already bought an autograph, I always specifically thank them for that.
Yeah.
So I remember recently James Remar. He didn't charge additional prices.
Yes, he was very nice.
Rob Romanus from Fast Times at Ridgemont High. He didn't charge an up price. Martin Landau, I don't think, charged an additional price.
I don't think so.
So, good on those people.
That's right. And then the other ones, I just took some stealth photos while they were signing your stuff.
And now, like the bigger celebrities will charge anywhere, I would say, between $50 and $100. And some I've heard are like crazy. I think Sylvester Stallone has come to like New York Comic Con.
Yeah.
And he charges like $300.
Oh my God. But people will pay that.
Yeah. And if I had the money, I probably would myself. I don't have that kind of money.
Right.
But if I did, I probably would. Because fuck it, I love Rocky.
I know.
You know? So anyway, yes, be prepared to pay. So now generally you have to pay not only for the autograph, but if you want to take a picture with them, you usually have to pay for that as well. Even the lower tier celebrities will try to upcharge that a lot of times. Not every time.
Yeah.
But a lot of times. So yeah, be prepared to pay. Now, this is one that you also kind of brought up, and that is to be open-minded when you go to these conventions.
Yeah.
Can you explain what you mean by that?
Well, so, like I said, I hadn't experienced any conventions before. You introduced me to them. So I went in with an open mind, and there are definitely people there who are, living their best life, and they're there to see their celebrity who they want to see and meet, and they're dressed up. And I like the fact that they have an outlet to do that and be free. I like it.
It takes all types at these conventions.
Yes. Some
people are just regular looking people, and some people you're like, where did this person come from? And the thing is, you can't, if you're kind of a cynical person like myself and like you to an extent, you can't look around these conventions and not have thoughts like, what the fuck is this person? Like, what do they do in their life? What does the rest of their life look like?
Yeah.
How do they function in the real world? And I'm not even talking about like cosplayers who like put a lot of work into their costumes and everything. Like, I'm talking like for example, when I was in line to meet George Romero, who directed Night of the Living Dead, Land of the Dead, Day of the Dead, all of them.
Yeah.
It was a big, long line. And there was a guy, a few people up from me, who had a briefcase. And I'd seen him carrying around this briefcase the whole convention. And I was like, he must have some like expensive like posters or photos or something in there, maybe lobby cards, that he's going to have George Romero sign or something. I'm like, he must have something good. I kind of want to see what he's got in there, you know? So I was curious about it the whole convention. Dan and I both, brother Dan and I both. And I see him later on, and he's got the briefcase open, like on a table. And I'm like, oh, let me see if I can just walk by and sneak a peek. And in his briefcase,
Oh, Lord.
he had like a mountain of candy bar wrappers. And that was it.
That's it?
Yeah.
So it was a briefcase to hold his candy bar wrappers?
I'm sure there were candy bars at one point.
Right, okay.
But yeah.
And
I was just like, this is a real person in the world. Like,
Yeah.
he came here with a briefcase full of candy bars.
Oh, boy.
So that's what I mean.
Yes.
Now, we say be open-minded because the convention is a place where people of a certain bent, including myself, by the way, I'm there with everybody else.
I mean,
I'm not saying I'm
exactly.
better or worse
We
than
also
anybody.
had this conversation, you know. Yeah.
And I'm there too.
Yes.
That's what I always add
You
to
are
it.
there too.
Like, oh my God, there's a guy with a briefcase full of candy bars. This is like a crazy person. How does he function in the real world? And I'm here too. Like, that's what it is. So it's like a way to kind of ground yourself.
Sure.
But even though we have these thoughts,
Right.
we keep in mind that this is basically a safe space.
Yes.
There are people here who are dealing with things we have no idea about.
Right.
There are people here who this might be their only outlet. This might be the only time they go out socially.
Yeah.
Because there are people like that at conventions who
Yeah.
like, you know, they're really into horror movies or sci-fi movies, and maybe they don't have meaningful relationships in the real world, and maybe that's why they're a little bit socially awkward and they don't quite know how to act in public.
Yeah.
But the good thing is they can come to these conventions
Right.
and feel like they're a part of something and get to meet their favorite celebrities and all that kind of thing.
And maybe meet other people who are into
Yes.
the same things that they are.
So if Fatima and I see you at a convention, yes, we might judge you. But we do it internally, and we always remind ourselves we're here too.
Oh, Lord.
So we don't judge you in a,
No.
overly negative way.
And I like the fact that the conventions are there so people can be free.
Yes, and that brings up point number 6, I guess this would be. Now, we just said don't judge people. But we both agree on this next one.
Yes.
Beware the line guys.
What do you mean by the line guys?
Line guys. I'm going to stand up for this one.
Oh, Lord.
Just need a little more energy to get through this. All right. A line guy is the guy when you're in a long line
Yeah.
for something at a convention.
Right.
Whether, for example, it be a screening of The Warriors,
Ah, yes.
or whether it be to meet Didi Khan from Greece, wherever it might be.
Uh-huh.
They're more likely than not within 10 people of you, front or back, give or take.
Right.
There will be what I call a line guy.
Yeah.
And a line guy can be found not only at conventions, you can find them in regular life, but they're always at conventions.
Right.
These are the people who, I guess, they're trying to be social. If you want to spin it in a positive light, if you want to spin it in a more negative light, which I think is probably a little bit more accurate for a lot of these people, they want to hold court.
Okay. And can we just clarify too? Line guy could be a girl.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Yeah. Line guy, line girl.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It's happened both. Yes, I've
Yes.
seen them of both sexes. So yes. So line guy, but that's just the term.
Okay. Got it.
So these are the people who it might start with, like, maybe they make a little joke. I really wish I could remember something.
I know. Oh, I
It'd be
wish
so
I'd
much better.
recorded.
But we went to a screening of The Warriors at the last convention we went to,
Yep.
which Fatima had not seen, and now
Ah, love it.
she's a huge Warriors fan.
I love it.
And I thought she might like it,
No.
but she loved it.
I loved it.
And she's even got a crush on one of them in particular.
Mm-hmm. Vermin. Anyway, we're getting
She's
off
such a
topic.
weirdo. Yes. So anyway, but in that line,
Yes.
there was a line guy, which
There
was really
was.
weird because he was not actually staying to watch the movie.
Yeah.
He was just like coming through the line making like jokes about people.
Yes.
And like he wasn't funny and he
Right.
wasn't hired to be there. Was
He
he dressed as
wasn't-
Jason?
Was he dressed
Or was
as...
he just joking around with someone who was dressed as Jason? I know there was a guy dressed as Jason from Friday Part 2.
All right, wait. Are you sure he wasn't there for the Warriors thing?
Yes, because he asked what we were in line for.
Oh, are you serious?
Yeah,
Oh,
And
that's
he didn't sit
even
there.
worse.
right. He was just like chilling, trying to get
Just
attention for
cracking
himself.
jokes and
Yeah.
nobody was listening to him.
Yeah.
So
So that's
he-
one way they could do it is like
Yeah.
these kind of jokes. And they were like the corniest like dad jokes.
Right.
And it was like one of those things where like you kind of chuckle to be polite and then you're like, okay, like turn away and like try to have a conversation, but then he'll like butt into that too.
Right. Yeah.
And then there's other times where it'll be more focused on what's actually happening. So there might be someone who has, you know, like a rare album that this person was on. And now they want to talk about that. But they want to tell you about, oh, yeah, well, I've met him before. You know, 2 years ago, we were down there and he's got some story about how he
Right.
personally had this interaction with him. And then they went out
Right.
for a beer after or something. And it's, you know, blah, 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 blah. And it's
Right.
like, okay, but you've still been waiting an hour in line to meet him. So you can't be that close. Like, you know, say that, but, you know.
Yeah, but you're thinking it.
And he's got to have a ton of stories to bore you with, and it's just like, oh, okay, cool, yeah,
Well, and I'm thinking particularly about the people who are being blatantly really loud so that everybody in the line can hear their conversation.
yeah. That's another type.
That's another
it could
type,
be a
right?
combo of all three, by the way, all
Yeah.
of these things.
Yeah.
But it also could be any one of these things. Like they might have a specialty where, like, my specialty is telling dad jokes.
Right.
My specialty is telling you about these other interactions I've had with this celebrity.
Yeah.
My specialty is just talking to my friends, but really loud.
Yeah, because I want everybody to hear. I don't need to hear about your conversation.
Yeah. Non-judgmental, open-minded. Right?
No, I am. But what I'm saying is,
I'm with you. I'm not picking on
I'll
you.
have a conversation with you while we're waiting in line, but I don't need all the other people to hear my conversation because
Right.
that's kind of rude,
Right.
right?
But it's not. I mean, it's nice to talk to people around you. Sure.
No, that's fine if you're having a conversation with
Right.
them. But these people, I think they're just having conversations between, or whoever will listen,
Yeah,
you know, but they want everybody to listen.
that's right. So that's why we say, beware the line guy.
Yeah.
It's hard to know before you start talking to someone what they're going to be like. But line guys will generally give you a clue because they've talked to everybody else around you. They're not there to talk to you. They're there to talk to the line, everybody. That's
Or
why they're
anybody,
line guys.
not even just anybody who will listen.
Right, but what I'm saying is they don't want to talk to just one person. They might be talking to one person, but they want the whole line to experience their brilliance as they talk to this person.
Oh man, yeah,
So that's the line guys.
yeah,
Now the other thing, another one, number 7,
yeah.
is what I call the curse of C3PO.
Oh,
And I call it that because of something that happened to my brother, but which has happened several times to me. Now, I told you, Brother Dan, he's a big sci-fi geek, I guess you might say. We all have our things. I'm not picking on the guy.
no.
But he loves Star Trek and he loves Star Wars. He loves both of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he's a little bit more into Star Wars than Star
Yes.
Trek, but he loves both of them.
Right.
But he had met most of the cast of Star Wars that are available to meet via conventions.
Mm-hmm.
But he had never met Anthony Daniels, who plays C3PO.
Mm-hmm.
Even in the newest movie, plays C3PO. He's been doing it all these years.
Right.
And he was going to be at Disney's Star Wars Celebration. I forget. I don't know if it's just called Star Wars Celebration or if there's another term for it. Someone's yelling at their speakers now saying, no, it's called whatever.
I don't know.
I know there's an official term for it, and I don't know what it is. I've never been to it myself. But Anthony Daniels was going to be at one.
Yeah.
And Brother Dan was like, Anthony Daniels, he never comes to these conventions out here, and he's like the only cast member that I haven't met. I'm going to invest a lot of money in this because I love Star Wars so much. I'm going to fly down to Orlando
Ooh.
to go to Disney World.
Oh man.
So that's like you got to pay for the flight.
Right.
You got to pay to get into Disney.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if the autograph was free or not. It might be, because sometimes like sponsored events like that, they'll be free, but you have to pay to get in anyway.
Right.
So it was a lot of money.
Yeah.
And he said, but you know what? I had to do it because he never comes around here. Well, the curse of C3PO is that if Dan hadn't gone, Anthony Daniels would never have come around here.
Right.
But because Dan did go, Anthony Daniels came to like 4 conventions in a row in this area after that. And I've had the same thing, because Meatloaf, the singer and star of Rocky Horror
Yeah.
Picture Show,
Yeah.
he came to Chiller Theater one year. And I wasn't going to go because I had a show that night, a show that you were in, as a matter of fact.
Right.
We were both in a production of Hair back in 2016.
That's right.
And I wasn't going to go all the way down to New Jersey to haul ass back to Boston to do Hair,
Right.
right? Because that's what like a crazy person would do.
Yeah.
But I said to myself, this is one of those situations, or if I don't go, he'll never come back. Because I've been burned by this before. Riff and Bernardo from West Side Story had come to a convention years ago, and I couldn't do it because I couldn't go because I was in a show. And Dan went for me. Mm-hmm. I mean, he went for himself, but while he was there, he also got their autographs. Love Riff and Bernardo from West Side Story, Russ Tamblyn, and George Chakiris.
Yeah.
And so I had their autographs. That was cool, but I didn't get to meet them. And they never came back. So I said, if I don't go to see Meatloaf, which for years and years, everyone's been telling me I look like Meatloaf, I sound like Meatloaf when I sing, all this stuff. It's like a running theme in my life. And so I wanted to go and meet him, right? And also, like, honestly, I do love me some Bat Out of Hell.
Yes, you do.
I mean, I know it's a little cheesy and everything, but
No.
it's actually a really good album, the first one. And the second one's not terrible either. But anyway, I said, let me go down there. Let me get my Rocky Horror album signed by the rest of the cast, pretty much. So let me go ahead and get him to sign this. I should make it back right around 6 o'clock, which was like our call time for Hair. And that's exactly what it was. I went to New Jersey. I met him. He, by the way, was in the Broadway cast of Hair.
Right.
He wasn't an original cast member, but he came into the show. Mm-hmm. So we talked about Hair. He asked me to do some lines for him from the show. See, now I'm becoming a line guy and I'm telling you my history. Yeah. But it was a nice moment.
You're a line guy.
Yeah. And then I came back home. Actually, I didn't come home. I went right to the theater.
Right.
Because by the time, like I said, it was like a 3.5 hour drive. But I did the show. But I was doing that because I didn't think he'd come around again. And then
what
2 or 3
happened?
conventions in a row after that, including one here in Boston, he came.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, everybody else can thank me that he's coming, because if I hadn't gone to New Jersey, he wouldn't have. So that's basically what it is. And happy ending to that Riff and Bernardo story.
Yes.
They came, it was the year before last year, because I was in a wheelchair.
Yes, you were.
But that didn't stop me. My broken ankle. And thankfully Fatima was there, and she wheeled my ass around the Chiller Theater convention. And we met and had pictures taken with George Chakiris and Russ Tamblyn.
That's right.
Riff and Bernardo.
Yeah.
From West Side Story.
Bam.
I'm going slightly out of the order that I wrote these in.
Uh-oh.
But my next point is to be polite, but have your moment. And this I'm talking about when you're with a celebrity.
Ah, right.
When you when you're in line, you finally get up to the table. You get to meet your celebrity. Mm-hmm. You want to be polite to the celebrity, of course.
Right.
And it can be very anxiety provoking because you want to tell them you're a fan, but obviously you're a fan. You just waited in line to talk to them.
Yeah.
And you want to stick out in their mind somehow, and maybe you're like back there trying to think of like something clever to say or whatever. I don't go for all that most of the time. I'm usually just either I have like an earnest story that I want to tell them about what something that they did meant to me, or I'm just happy to meet them and I just say, hey, my name's Eric. Nice to meet you. All right, can you sign this? Whatever, and then take a picture or whatever. It's no big deal. Lasts like 30 seconds, whatever. But other times you do have a little bit of a story you want to tell. So I say, go ahead and do that. But just remember there are people that were waiting in line just like you.
Right.
So just remember those people too. So be polite to the celebrity and be polite to the people behind you.
Right.
And get what you need to say out, but do it in a timely fashion. And let the line keep moving. Like, there's no need for you to be there for 15 minutes talking to this person when there's a line around the block.
Right.
And
Makes
it can
sense.
get crazy.
Be polite.
Right. And
Be
then
respectful.
just all you can just sum it all up by saying, Tim Curry, I love you.
Oh,
And then
so cute.
there's so much wrapped up in that statement.
I know.
Let him think about it.
Yeah.
Now, we just talked about getting pictures taken. And this brings me to my next point, which is point number 9. It's cheaper if you take a picture or get an autograph signed for 2 people or more. Could be a group of people. Could be like, say it's your family. You go, like Dan and I could go and get someone to sign, like to the Dwinell's brothers or something like that. Or get our picture taken if they're charging money. Mm-hmm. You can say, hey, can we both be in the picture? Yeah, most of the time you can. So it's $10 more if you want a picture with the person. But it's really only $5 because you and your brother are going to split it.
Right.
Or you and the people you're there with. However, the thing to keep in mind is, especially if this is a celebrity that you really care about meeting, when you take this picture, the other person that you're going to be in this picture with, is this someone you're going to be happy that is in the picture with you for the rest of your life?
Yeah, you got to think about this.
In the case of my brother, yeah, that's no problem. Picture with me, Dan, and the guy that played Winston in Ghostbusters, Ernie Hudson.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, it's a good
I'll
picture.
never feel bad about that.
It's a great picture.
I've got a picture of me, Dan, and Big Bird.
Yeah.
So those are great.
Yeah.
I have other pictures where it's me, my ex-girlfriend,
Ooh.
and David Naughton.
Uh-oh.
And I said ex-girlfriend. So that picture, I'm like, man, I really wish at least he was in the middle of the picture so I could crop her out. But he's not.
No.
So that's what I'm talking about. Especially if you're spending money to take a picture, just think about who else is in the picture. Is this someone that you're going to be happy with forever? If this is a celebrity that only comes around once in a while.
Right.
Kane Hodder, take all the pictures with him you want because he's at every convention ever. I'm convinced. He's just there at every single convention ever. I've seen that dude so many times.
Yeah, he's
Kane
making
Hodder
his
plays
money.
Jason.
Yeah.
In parts 6 through 10.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome guy.
Yeah,
No,
you've met
no
him.
knock on him.
No.
And he's hustling, that's for sure.
Exactly.
But he is everywhere.
Good for him.
All right, so we have our final point, which is point number 10, be safe.
That's right.
Now, I haven't experienced this too much at conventions, with the exception of maybe people going through my bag. Like if I'm wearing a backpack, I have caught someone like taking a poster out, and I think they were doing it more like out of curiosity and just thinking I wouldn't notice.
Wait, like while you were waiting in line or something?
Yeah.
Really?
And seeing like what I was bringing to get signed.
No, that's
because,
not okay.
Again, some people that go to these things don't always have the best social skills.
Right. Okay.
But I was just like, hey, get out of my bag.
Yeah.
You
No.
know? But especially I would imagine if you're an attractive woman,
Mm-hmm.
or if you're there like in a more revealing cosplay outfit.
Right.
These are times you want to be extra careful,
Sure.
especially if it's in a hotel. Don't think like, oh, I'm just going to go back to my room by myself. Like try to see if someone can walk you there. Even usually they have like security guards or something.
Right.
For the conventions. They can probably help you out. And just, it's a lot of people, and anywhere there's a lot of people, there's going to be a few bad apples.
Yeah.
So just be extra careful. And
I do notice a lot of people walking around with beer and like drinking and stuff like that too. So
yeah,
you have to be careful.
and
with
we tend not to go to like the parties and stuff like that.
Right.
But they do usually have like a Saturday night party or something.
Right.
Somewhere I guess the Warriors one was kind of like that, but
Yeah.
the Warriors was full of unusual people, but none of them seemed particularly dangerous.
No. Right.
But yeah, so just be careful.
Right. Be aware.
Have a friend.
I've never felt unsafe, going to the conventions, but it's always good to be there with somebody.
Yeah, no, I don't want to give people the wrong idea,
Right,
because I think the overwhelming sensation of going to a convention is what
Yeah.
you spoke about earlier,
Yeah.
where this is a great environment
Yeah.
where people can be themselves no matter who they are.
Right.
It kind of meets you where you are. But we just want to say,
Yeah.
just keep in mind, even though that is the case, you still want to have a little bit of, your guard up.
Awareness.
Awareness, that's the
Yeah.
word I was looking for.
Right.
All right, Fatima.
Yes.
I think that's all I have to say as far as advice for conventions, horror or otherwise goes.
Yeah.
I think I've told most of my stories before. Everybody knows my interaction with Linda Blair, which didn't go well.
Right. Oh, yeah, yeah.
I try not to hold a grudge because I said I wouldn't anymore because I told the story on the show.
But I think you still hold a grudge.
Yeah, I kind of do. She wouldn't sign my poster because it had already been signed by her stunt double, and she refused to sign it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was bullshit.
Yeah.
Roddy Piper, of course, knocking me out.
It's a good one.
That's another one.
Yeah.
The rest of them, I think, we've had some nice stories. Brother Dan had a story with, I can't think of the actor's name, but the gentleman that played Data on Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Yeah.
I don't want to tell Dan's story too much, but I guess before he became an actor, he was studying to be a nurse.
Yeah.
And because I think he asked Dan what he did, and Dan said, "Oh, I'm a nurse," because he's a nurse.
Yeah.
And Data, I'm sorry, I don't know, I can't remember the guy's real name.
Wait, Data,
like the robot, the android guy.
Oh, okay.
From Star Trek.
I know.
He's got a real name in real life. I just can't think of what it is.
Okay.
Again, there's people yelling at their speakers right now. I'm sorry, I'm not a Star Trek guy.
I was thinking Data from Goonies.
No, different guy.
Okay, got it.
The kind of yellow whitish skinned android from Star Trek Next Gen.
Nope.
Anyway, he was starting to be a nurse.
Okay.
And I forget what the story was, but he was taking someone's temperature rectally, and he forgot to take the thermostat out.
Thermostat?
I mean, what's it called?
Thermometer?
Thermometer, yeah. Yeah, thermostat.
Maybe you should just let Dan tell this story.
I guess so. The short thing is, he told the guy to roll over before he took the thing out, and it broke in his butt. And then he had to call the doctor in and be like, I just broke this thing in this guy's butt. And that's how he became an actor, not a nurse.
That's a great story.
Yeah. So we enjoyed that story.
Oh.
I will say about Anthony Daniels.
Yeah.
He yelled at my ex, the ex who was in the other pictures I was talking about.
Yeah.
Because she tried to take a picture while he was signing things, and he's a little queenish, Anthony Daniels.
Okay.
And he was like, "Could you please?" Like he put his things down and he like closed his eyes and was like, "Could you please?" With a British accent, which I won't attempt, but could you please not take your pictures right now? I'm trying to sign this, and now I have flashes in my eyes.
Oh.
And he was like a little catty about it. And then he was like, once he was done signing, he was like, "Shall we take a proper picture now?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure."
Shade.
He did compliment my camera, though. It was a cool Pix. Digital camera back in those days.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But anyway, I think that's about it. I'm trying to think if I have any, since this is spooky ass shit, I'm trying to think if I have any cool horror star interactions. Courtney Gaines is always cool from Children of the Corn.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's something. So a lot of times when I do go to these conventions, I'll wear my Hedwig and the Angry Inch shirts, because especially before it came back on Broadway, it was kind of like a niche cult kind of thing, and not everyone recognized it, but the people who did recognize it love it.
Mm-hmm.
And I always got a good reaction when I wore this shirt to conventions from other people at the convention, and also sometimes celebrities. And Courtney Gaines is one that I remember in particular. He's a Hedwig and the Angry Inch fan.
He commented on it?
He commented on it, and we talked about it. And we even traded some bootleg materials.
Really?
Yeah. He's a big Hedwig fan.
Who knew?
I did. Since I met him back in 2003 or 4, whatever year it was, at Rock and Shock. I think it was the very first Rock and Shock convention.
Very cool.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think overall, Linda Blair aside, I've had positive interactions with most of the people I met. Yep. Of course, they're kind of paid to be happy to meet you, and they want to make money, so they don't want people leaving saying like, "Oh, this person was a dick."
Wait, but I have a story.
Okay.
Remember when we went to meet Potsy and the other one?
Yeah, who I wasn't even like all that up on meeting in the first place.
Anson Williams.
Okay, so these guys from Happy Days.
Yeah.
So this is Potsy and Ralph Malph from Happy Days.
Right.
Now, I have a picture of the cast of Happy Days.
Uh-huh.
And it's already signed by Aaron Moran and Henry Winkler.
Right.
So we were at Chiller. This was like just recently.
Right.
And these guys were going to be there. And they'd been there before, but this was the first time they'd been there in a lot of years. Mm-hmm. And I'm a pretty big Happy Days fan.
Right.
Like I grew up watching it, but I'm not like obsessed with it or anything like that. And I was like, well, I have this picture. since I already have their autographs on it, it would be nice to get like the rest of the cast as they come up, you know. So they were there, and I was like, all right, yeah. And then I saw the price tag.
Right.
I don't remember how much it was, but it was more than I wanted to pay.
Yeah, it was.
And I was like, I don't know if this is worth it. But Fatima's a bit of a completist. So she's like, no, if you have it signed by Henry Winkler and Ed Moran, you got to get it signed by Ralph Malph and Potsy. You got to. I'm like, okay. So, but this was one of those situations where you had to get a ticket to get the autograph. So you had to go buy. You couldn't go up to the table directly. You had to go buy a ticket. So we go up there. We get our ticket to buy to get the autograph. We bring it up to the table, and they just continued chatting to each other. Did not even look up. Did not acknowledge our existence in any way, shape, or form. I would say it was like at least 5 minutes, maybe more.
It was at least 5 minutes.
Yeah.
It definitely felt like a long time.
And I was gonna go back to the table and be like, give me my money back.
Yeah.
Like they're just ignoring me.
Right. Because you were already on the fence about it anyways. Yeah. And they were just having a full-on conversation. We were standing in front of them for at least 5 minutes. And then freaking Potsy was like, oh, hey.
Not even though, because you make it sound like he was like surprised. It was more just like he just looked up and was like, all right, okay, let me see.
I was trying to be nice.
And then they were nice enough. Like
they
after that, it's not like they were like, oh yeah, I'll sign it. Like,
they were engaging.
And,
for the most part.
But it was weird.
It was so weird.
I've never had that before nor since.
Yeah.
That people it was like we had an invisibility shield in front of us.
And I mean,
it wasn't busy.
You can't miss us.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, well, I was going to say it wasn't particularly busy. It's not like there was like a line.
No.
And it was so crowded.
Right.
That they just thought we were in line for something else, or like we were standing there with our yellow ticket saying like, now you can purchase their autograph.
Oh, man. That was an interesting one.
So there's our celebrity encounters. Oh, one more little interesting story. Not a horror star, but Dorsey Wright from The Warriors played Cleon.
Yes.
I brought Fatima up to him after the show because he was in the movie version of Hair,
right,
as HUD. So I said, oh hey, we did Hair a few years back. That's how we met actually and became friends. And now she's here. We're watching The Warriors. She just saw it for the first time. She loved it. And he reached out, took your hand, and sang Hair, the song, to you. So that was a fun interaction.
It was very, very sweet.
Yeah,
I loved it.
So sometimes you have nice interactions too. So that's it. So Fatima, what would you say to a person who is thinking about going to conventions, or maybe someone who is friends with or in a relationship with someone who likes to go to conventions? Would you recommend that they give it a try, or would you just say, you know what, steer clear, it won't be your thing?
No, I say give it a try, because there are so many different things that you can see and experience. And I mean, I don't always go to meet anybody in particular, but it's nice to see these people, and then sometimes I like don't stalk people, but I can see them from afar and I start taking pictures. So maybe a little bit, but no, I think it's a really great experience. And like I said before, I like the fact that people can go to the conventions and they can just see the people they want to see and have a good time.
There you go. Well put. All right. No, I'm serious. I'm not making a joke.
Okay.
That was well put. All right. So that wraps it up for this episode of Spooky Ass Shit. Remember, please check out the website spookyasshit.com or spookyas.com and find us on Instagram at spookyasshit. That is ASSSHIT. Not as. It's ass, not ass. That's why I say that, to clarify.
Yeah.
And you can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/spookyas. Hey guys, in all of 2019, we only got one written review on iTunes.
Oh no.
For Apple Podcast. Just one. That made me really sad.
Oh.
But maybe, dare I dream it, 2019 will be a new year.
2019?
I mean 2020.
Yes.
2020 will be a whole new year, new experiences.
Yes.
And new reviews.
Yeah.
So if you have not done so yet, I humbly ask and invite you to leave a kindly worded review on Apple Podcast, or wherever else you happen to listen. It means a lot to me. It keeps the show going. I think you can tell my energy's up just even having Fatima here, who is a regular, semi-regular guest on the show.
Mm-hmm.
But it really makes a difference to me to have other people involved and interested, and to look and read the reviews helps keep me going. So please do that. It helps a lot more than you might even think to read those kind words that you guys leave.
Very nice.
So until next time, thank you, Fatima. And don't be afraid.